Mayor, at 6 o'clock.
Welcome, everyone. This is the regular meeting of Bella Vista City Council for July 28, 2025. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please.
Council members Harp,
Here.
Hughes,
Here.
Newport,
Here.
Wilms,
Yes.
Isbell,
Here.
Hanschel,
Here.
Mayor Flynn.
Thank you. First item is citizen input. Per the rules, there's a 3-minute per person time limit to address the council on any topic of that person's choosing. And I'll call the names. First speaker is Linda Lloyd of 102 Fairway.
Good evening. I'm here to thank the city and the city staff and our Freeze and Nichols consultants for all of the hard work that they did on redoing sections 107 and 109 of our ordinance. It's a breath of fresh air it will be a breath of fresh air to have an ordinance that's written specifically for Bella Vista and not for some other city that has nothing to do with Bella Vista. And there's been plenty of time for staff comments and citizen comments and planning commission comments. And I think it would be a real benefit to our residents and our contractors and our staff if this were enacted sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. The next speaker is Melissa Thomas. It says builder owner, doesn't give an address. If you could give an address when you come up, thanks.
Hi, Melissa Thomas. I can give an address for property that we own if that's good enough. We're just coming to speak about the ordinance, so.
Okay.
So one address for property we own is 5
Ma'am,
Hammer
you
Circle.
need to give your address.
Okay,
Even if it's not in Bella Vista, you need to give your address.
okay. I didn't know what you preferred. So our
Yeah.
physical address is 11460 Northridge Road in Pea Ridge.
Okay.
So, and like I said, we're just coming to speak regarding the new zoning and ordinances. So, reiterate, a lot of work has gone into this, and I think it's great that it's going to take into consideration the uniqueness of Bella Vista. There's a couple of things that I did email to council members. I think I got everybody, but now that I'm counting, I think I may have missed one. I just pulled it from online. But there are a couple of things in there just from a builder perspective that I wanted to bring up. I know this is, 200 plus pages, so it's going to take time to get through all that. But there were 2 things in there that we noticed just to bring up as a comment and a potential concern. The first one being around no electric pedestals in the front. So it's not that we necessarily are saying that we don't agree with that. I think it's just important to make sure that the city takes the time to work with Carroll Electric. I'm not sure that they're fully aware of what all this would entail. I know I've talked with some of the representatives of Carroll Electric, and if you do change where a pedestal's not allowed in the front, then it's going to take more time by the builders, by the city, and Carroll Electric. If we go back to when we were doing temp pedestals and temp meters, it's going to require an extra inspection by the city. A couple of trips from Carroll Electric take them longer, and honestly, everybody is so busy these days, they're all behind, right? Carroll Electric right now is typically taking us, 5 to 6 weeks to even get new service. So if they're having to make a second trip out, they're going to get further behind. But like I said, it's mainly just to try to make sure that they're engaged and they know, and nobody's surprised when this one does come. The other one is around the preservation of existing natural vegetation and the tree canopy. So builders today already have to follow the rule about planting, either leaving 2 trees in the front yard or planting 2 trees. We obviously try to leave 2 trees. We can't always do that because we don't control what all Carroll Electric comes in to cut down. They can come in and cut down all the trees in the front 20-foot setback. So when they do, then we plant trees. There is new language in here around leaving 10% natural, even on septic lots. And it does say that we shall leave on the sides behind the back corners of the house in the back, leave that undisturbed. We as builders can do that. I will tell you that when you've got trees in that and you're having to dig for septic systems behind it, that, you know, those septic lines can go within 10 feet. And if we leave that 7.5, you know, in trees, a lot of times digging disturbs the roots of the trees and they die. I can tell you we tried. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It's now time for council reply. I do want to mention for everybody's interest that a couple things. One is Carroll Electric did contact us today, and they're going to meet with 1 or 2 of us. They had been contacted as a stakeholder up front, but didn't realize some of these specific things. So we are going to meet with them. And the second thing is the thing she mentioned about the trees. This is just a factual, that some people on council probably know this, some don't. The Planning Commission suggested that was a very recent change prompted by a Planning Commission suggestion. So anyway, that's all I had. Anybody like to comment? Travis?
Thanks for coming, Linda and Melissa. Linda, I appreciate your input on the change for this code update. However, the comments that I'm receiving are just trickling in now, so I would be hesitant to rapidly move this forward without all the appropriate readings. And then Melissa, as Melissa articulated, I have a personal experience with the tree issue because the builders left trees in my yard. Now they're dead and it's cost me thousands of dollars to deal with, so I share her frustration with that.
Anybody else?
I do.
Larry?
I guess I want to thank Linda for her compliments about the staff and the consultant for doing the work. I think they did a good job. I don't know that we need to wait and process this over 3 meetings, which is what our authority is. I think doing it at 1 meeting might be premature. While the information has been out there, I don't know how thoroughly the public has been aware of that information being available to them. So I think there's a small minority that may, in fact, be aware, but I don't know about the large majority, so I'd like to give them at least another meeting before I would be comfortable in adopting the revisions that are proposed in 109 and 107, so.
Anybody else? Okay. The next order of business is reports, and I do have an extra report that's not listed.
I was wondering if I could speak for the 3 minutes. I didn't know I called today and they said, oh, you can come in.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Our attorney's telling me that it's out of order. Thank you.
Okay. So
You can communicate with us later. Okay. As I said, I do have a special presentation. This is for Julie and Tim Hall. Has to do with the 4th of July parade. So I'm going to read it, and then I'll have them come up to present it. City of Bella Vista, Arkansas Certificate of Recognitions presented to Julie and Tim Hall in recognition of your efforts each year to organize and execute the 4th of July parade, a long-standing and well-attended community event that honors the spirit of Independence Day and brings together individuals and families from all over Northwest Arkansas as the only event of its kind. We thank you for your service to your city, presented this 28th day of July, 2025, John D. Flynn, Mayor. And I do want to also read something. Julie was quite insistent about the efforts of her new events committee. So these are the members of the committee: Steve Morrow, Tony Arnone, Tom Wooters, Clint Skirkle, Gage Skirkle, Joseph Bollinger, and Chris Pussell. So if Julie and Tim would come up, I'd like to present this to them. Thank you.
Yeah, can I have a key to the city?
I did want to mention Julie and Tim's sons, Michael and Andrew Hall, have had a business, Crazy Willie's Ice Cream, had its 5th year anniversary in June 2025. We're not supposed to mention individual businesses, but I thought it was pretty extraordinary that minors would start such a successful business. So now to get back to the other business of the council meeting. Next thing is the monthly financial report for May 31, period ending May 31, 2025. And it's continuing to look encouraging. On the revenue side, city sales tax is up 13.8% compared to a year ago. County sales tax is up 4.7%, and total revenue, operating revenue, is up 11.3%. So we're pretty encouraged by that so far this year. As you know, with the national economy, there's a lot of question marks about how things would go, and so far they're going pretty well. Now on the expense side, the total operating expenses are 5% under budget, which is $464,000 after 5 months. So we continue to do a pretty good job of holding down the expenses. So that's the financial report. I'm, as I said, pretty encouraged about it so far this year. The next item on the agenda is items related to proposed sales tax bond extension. And I'd like to have Chief James Graves come up. What I was particularly interested in was the 3 radio towers. He was going to talk about that a little bit. A couple of different people on council had mentioned concerns to me, so I felt like I didn't do a good enough job of explaining it, frankly. So the fire chief's out of town, and Chief Graves is, this affects police and fire and streets, so they're all very invested in it. Chief Graves?
Okay. So we talked a little bit last week about the radio towers we want to put up. You know, as mentioned, we're currently on the POA water towers, and while that does work, it's not the best course of action. We have some problems with dome deflection and signal strength, and the fact that we don't own the water towers. And so I just wanted to go over. I talked after last week's meeting with fire chief and the water department, or I'm sorry, the streets department, because we're the primary users of the communication system. So some of the things we talked about, we didn't touch on at last week's meeting, I want to touch on tonight. So one of the primary concerns we have is we don't own the water towers, and so I think that's a problem moving forward as a progressive professional city when we're trying to look into the future. We built this building for 30 years into the future. We're building fire stations for 30 decades into the future. And for us to not own our towers for a communication system, I think is a problem. Well, we have a good working relationship with the POA right now, and they let us put our equipment on their towers. We don't know what the future is going to look like, so I think it's a bad position for the city to be in. It's some other entities' control as far as some of our critical equipment. So obviously, if we own our own towers, that problem will be solved. Another one of the issues we come up with is the fact that the water towers, they cause what's called dome deflection because of their dome shape. We don't get a good proper signal that goes out over Bella Vista. The frequencies we have are digital frequencies, and so if anybody's ever listened to digital frequencies, I'm sure Council Member Harp has. If you have a weak signal strength or some sort of dome deflection, some sort of interference, you get that mechanical sound, and they're very unlike analog frequencies. Digital frequencies are very hard to hear when you get that mechanical sound in the radio. So that's kind of one of the problems we have. We may have coverage in all the areas. I don't think we have necessarily total dead spots in Bella Vista, but we do have that mechanical sound voice over the radio, which makes it almost impossible to hear. And it gets worse with the dome deflection. It gets worse with the fact that the towers are shorter than they should be. Normal radio towers would be taller. Another problem we have is each individual frequency needs a separate individual antenna. I'm not a radio guy, so I just learned all this myself. Each individual frequency needs its own individual antenna. If you look at a water tower, you can see the antenna is sort of stacked all the way around it. Currently, I'm told that there are 2 frequencies we own as a city, but we can't utilize because we don't have room on the water towers to put the antennas because they need to be so far apart. Having our own tower system would alleviate that problem so we could utilize all the frequencies that are available to us. Which as we get busier and we have a greater population, we get more calls for service. We're running fire, EMS, and police all at once, even streets department at times during weather events. That is necessary for us to have the additional frequencies. If an example of the tower size, I don't know what the current height of these water towers are. I didn't get a chance to get that, but I know it's not 199 feet, and that's what the radio towers will be, is 199 feet. So that'll give us a much greater elevation to broadcast our signal. We have 3 towers throughout the entire city, and that gives us proper elevation to be able to hit all the repeaters on the separate towers to cover the entire city, which is just about 50 square miles. Another problem we've had over the years, is the fact that because we don't own the towers, we don't own the property they sit on, we don't own the fence around them, we don't own the radio shed that's on the property itself. Now, we do have an agreement with the POA, and it's been, they work pretty well with us, but there have been times when we've gone out to do maintenance or we have a problem with a certain tower, and we go to do maintenance on our equipment, and our lock, there's supposed to be a POA lock and a city lock that secures the gate. Our lock is gone, or it's locked in a manner that the POA accidentally locked us out. They don't do it on purpose, I'm sure. And so that slows down us dealing with our own issues, and we have problems with our radio towers or our radio frequencies and equipment. Also, sometimes, again, nobody does this on purpose, but the POA has to have people go up there and paint the towers once in a while, do their own maintenance on the water towers, and many times we found our equipment damaged, and later on we wonder why are we having this signal strength problem? What's going on? We find on a tower there's some damaged equipment, and we don't know how it got damaged, but we're assuming it's some of the maintenance that takes place on the water towers, and I'm sure it's done by accident, but that just happens. That would be alleviated if we owned our own equipment, our own towers. Also, we have to have backup generators at all these radio towers, and currently one of the POA sites doesn't have a generator available for us. And so we're running a heavy-duty extension cord, basically, from one of the city facilities as backup power for one of these towers. And so these are just little things, but they all add up to possible failures or system failures in the future. And I think as a city moving forward, we just need to decide if we're going to be professional and we're going to have all the required equipment and do things in that professional manner, then we need to make this small investment in these radio towers, which will last into the foreseeable future for longer than any one of us will probably be here. And it'll solve all these issues for us. And so I'm more than happy to take any questions if anybody.
Shay?
So will the location of these towers be on city property?
My understanding is we'll buy the property, yes, we'll own the property.
Okay, and then did we explore any grant options for this?
I don't think so.
Okay, do you happen to, it's okay if you don't know if
Yeah,
anything-
I honestly, I don't know. I didn't look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I support this idea and I understand how critical it can be, especially if, you know, the fire department's operating with the SCBA and have that mechanical static and you know, can't hear critical radio traffic. So I support this, but will you be on the AWIN system now, like the rest of the county? You're still have to do a patch?
So that's a great question. We aren't currently part of AWINS, but we will have it. We currently have an AWINS patch over, and with this new tower system, my understanding is we'll have a better way to communicate. So we will be able to communicate with AWINS, though we are our own individual system, independent of AWINS.
Okay, the reason I ask, because from the outside looking in, the patch currently doesn't work very well.
Yeah, that's correct. And my understanding is, after talking with Chief Sims, that the new, I don't want to call it a patch, but the new workaround for AWINS will work a lot better with this new tower system. And we are going to move towards ourselves as an agency. I think it's critical we do have our own system. This isn't a big AWINS discussion, but we had coverage problems with AWINS. We have equipment problem with AWINS, and you're locked into a certain radio and a certain system, and that can become problematic because then you're locked into price increases that you can't control. But we're looking, like the fire department, I know they have dual purpose radios right now where they can talk within our system and switch over to AWINS individually on their radios. And on the PD, as we purchase new handhelds, we're going to start doing that as well. So that'll be another way we'll be able to talk to AWINS when we have to. For those who don't know, AWINS is just a statewide system that they've implemented. It allows agencies to talk amongst each other. After 9/11 was discovered, hey, we got to be able to talk together on these major events. And so that allows us to talk to other agencies. And so we do have some workarounds, and this new tower system will make that better.
Anna?
Just a quick question, just because I'm obviously not really familiar with towers. So you talked about the current ones have digital frequencies. Would the new tower also have digital frequencies?
So
or
yeah,
would it have a different?
that's not the tower necessarily, it's just the system.
Yep.
Radio systems used to be analog and now they're digital. My point was with old analog frequencies, if you had a weak signal, you could kind of still hear a voice, but it was more staticky. It wasn't as hard to understand, but with the digital frequencies, if you have weak signals or interference, you have a mechanical sound that's much more. So yeah, with these new towers, we'll still have digital frequencies, but we'll have better reception and better transmission.
Okay, and my other question was around, you mentioned generators for each of the towers.
Yes.
Would solar be an opportunity?
I don't think so, really, because you just need power on demand. You know, while solar has its places for emergency backup power, I don't think it's good. For one thing, batteries, you know, you could probably have a system that charged the battery all day long and it would last through the night. But the thing is, sometimes when we get power outages or power demands, we need to be able to go just dump gas in a generator to keep it going, you know, hours after hours after hours. And I don't know if a solar option would be something we would want to use. It'd be like using a solar option here for our emergency backup power. We just couldn't do it because you have to be able to run independently for sometimes days, weeks on end. And so you need to be able to just go dump gas or diesel on something to make that happen.
Okay, thank you.
Larry?
The towers themselves, will they be a freestanding style?
My understanding is, well, now,
Freestanding, no cable guide wires.
I think so, because I think their height allows a freestanding, but I'm not positive.
They can be constructed that way, but it's a matter of the design and the cost.
Yeah.
So it would be a preference in the standpoint of not requiring as large a site to be freestanding?
My understanding, they will be freestanding. Anybody else who's here, who's been involved in this could correct me, but my understanding is they are freestanding, because otherwise we'd have to buy a lot of property for those guy wires that would go out, you know, pretty extensively.
Do we pay any fee now for use of the water towers of the POA to use them?
No, they allow us to use them for free, and they've been very good. They've been good, you know, neighbors, and they've been good, but we just, you know, you don't know what the future holds and with relationships moving forward.
And how we got there on those towers is that the POA originally had a cop shop in Bella Vista under the county sheriff's purview.
Correct.
The POA paid for 100% of that operating cost, and a part of that was to have radio systems. And so in order for the POA to comply with the county sheriff's requirement of communication with the county as well as themselves, they allowed the towers to be used because they owned the towers as well.
Correct.
Now the POA still owns the water towers, but the police department has been moved over to the city for responsibility. So we have two agencies, and so normally there's an agreement, a lease agreement, and I've arranged for many of those to lease space on water towers for not communication mostly, but for communication like cell towers. So it was a preferred way. The power for tower maintenance, if currently, do you need to compromise or shut down the power or operating of a given tower if they do maintenance on the water tower?
When they do maintenance.
When they do maintenance.
To my understanding, we haven't had to shut down a tower for their maintenance.
Okay.
We've had to shut down a tower for our maintenance, replacing microwaves or repeaters and stuff.
All right. I think what you're proposing is a good plan.
Yeah, we could operate, I mean, we could shut down a tower and operate, we just have some dead spots because, the 3 repeaters cover the whole city.
Do you have locations proposed for the 3?
Yes.
Geographic
My
locations?
understanding is Chief Sims already has the locations mapped out, yes.
And that'll be shared then with the fire department? How about the street department? Will
We
they
all share
use
the
that same radio system?
We share the same radio system. During weather events, they're up on the radio system as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so the expense of the radio's dispatch system within the city is, well, it's housed at the police department. It's not my system alone. It belongs, the fire as well as streets, because they all use it, so.
If we were to develop a utility for the city, would you have capacity on there for another user to use those towers to
It
communicate?
just depends on the size of towers we get. I'm not a professional, but I know towers can only hold so many antennas, but, if there was that capacity on the towers, I'm sure we could, but I'm not fully up to speed on that.
Will the fire and police department have separate antennas up there?
No, it's the same system.
Same.
Well, okay, we use separate frequencies, and so it's the same tower, but, there'll be individual antennas for individual frequencies, if that's
Okay.
what you're asking.
All right.
Yeah.
So there would be an ability to add additional antennas on those towers if we have additional frequencies?
Yes, like I mentioned, there's 2 frequencies we don't currently use that we own as a city, is my understanding, and we can't use them because we don't have room on the towers for the antennas because they have to have so much spacing between them.
Will you add those 2 channels?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the new towers will allow us to put up all the channels and probably some additional if we need them. Like, there's a need for what's called a sort of a non-recorded sort of talk-around channel, kind of like a car-to-car. There's times when as an officer, probably a firefighter as well, you're going someplace and you may want to talk, but not necessarily have, it's just sort of like crosstalk. Hey, we're going here, let's meet over here, but you don't want to tie up the working frequency. You'll switch over, and so we'll be able to add that frequency. We currently don't have that capacity, just because we don't have room on the water towers to add it.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. The next item is, I entertain a motion to suspend the rules of order and procedure to allow all ordinances on the agenda to be read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
That was Larry Wilms and Anna Isbell. A roll call vote.
Council members Harp,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Newport,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Isbell,
Yes.
and Hanschel.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0. Next item is the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
That was Wendy Hughes and Shay Newport. Roll call vote.
Council members Harp,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Newport,
Yes.
Wilms,
Yes.
Isbell,
Yes.
and Hanschel.
Yes.
Motion to approve the consent agenda passed 6-0. Next one is new business. An ordinance adopting a new zoning ordinance and map for the city of Bella Vista, Chapter 109, repealing prior zoning ordinances and maps and for other purposes. This is the first reading. Is there discussion? Travis?
Yeah, I would just be curious to see what the impacts are by the electric company. So if staff could give council a report after they meet with them next week or whenever that meeting is, I would appreciate that.
Oh, sure, definitely, yeah. Wendy Hughes?
I understand that regarding like temporary signage, that the 4th of July parade, and I think also the Memorial Day celebration, the community has some, I think, some issues with their temporary signage they had regarding permitting. If we had suggestions for amendments, would that be preferred to be doing it now during this process or after it was passed? What would be the best?
If you want to amend it before it's adopted, then through this process, but you can always amend it after you adopt it as well.
I didn't know if there's a
So-
preference.
I mean, we could practice it as it is, as it's written. And, you know, it's a living, breathing document, so this will not be set in stone. So if there's something that we don't like, we can always come back and change it. But the temporary signage is completely changed to what we currently have.
Okay.
We don't look at land use, zoning, anything. Anybody gets the same rules applied regardless
Okay.
of if they're zoned or so I think there will be a lot of alleviating a lot of typical comments that we get anytime it's a temporary sign with that alone. And it levels the playing field against all uses and all businesses and all people. So I think if that's what you guys are more interested in, maybe seeing how that plays out for a little bit, or if you want to make it, it's very generic right now because we did that. So just be whatever you guys decide to do for that. But
Thank you so much.
yeah.
Larry Wilms?
One observation is that the sign ordinance that we have now is a very complex document to interpret and administer, as well as for those in the public who are trying to figure out where do I go for the sign.
It is a very long sign ordinance.
It was developed with due diligence and lots of care by someone.
The
And that's
temporary
a-
sign section will be very short compared to what we currently have.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I think the new one will be a big improvement.
Shay?
I know you mentioned that staff would also likely be collecting amendments for us to consider. Do you know if there will be one for us next month? Should we be anticipating anything?
Oh, yeah, that's the goal. After you guys have had time to actually chew on this for the next few weeks, we do have some amendments to kind of clean up some things just from the planning commission meeting, and then just discussion and any comments we get now, like if you come and meet, or if you have an amendment proposed. I do foresee at least one map amendment and then one or two technical amendments in the document itself.
So you would anticipate you'd bring those next month?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Larry Wilms?
One more comment or question, I guess, and that is that the new zoning map does have some impacts to it for adjacent properties. And because we're doing a rezoning of the entire city, if you will, what we've done is we've published that before the Planning Commission in noticing. It's been noticed here as a part of this package that's before the council now. So it's not that we haven't communicated to the citizens, they just may not be totally aware of it if they haven't looked at and followed the progress of the revisions to 107 and 109. So.
Correct. We notice in the weekly Vista. So that's where our notices go, and then, of
Okay.
course, media releases, and then our website.
So it's been out in the Vista then?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
we are legally required to notify in a
Okay.
circulating newspaper.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's it for that. The next one is an ordinance adopting the new subdivision ordinance for the city of Bella Vista, chapter 107, repealing the prior subdivision ordinance and for other purposes. Do any comments on that?
The only comment is that it's shrunk and it's streamlined and it's effective.
That's the goal.
Anybody else? Okay, then, thank you, Taylor. The next one is a resolution expressing an intent to place an emergency siren system in the Plan 2025 Capital Improvement Bond Ordinance. Shay, did you want to speak on this?
Sure, thank you. After our work session last week, and I had actually been working on this prior to the bond amendment being put together, the bond resolution, I would like to see tornado sirens added to the list of projects. Specifically, the estimated cost is around $630,000. We can round up for $700,000. The bond itself is for $35 million, and I think there's room, is what was indicated, for us to include that. I hear and see a lot of public discourse about the desire to have severe weather sirens, and we don't have anything that is audible. I mean, yes, everyone has cell phones, and assuming the towers work and that phones are charged and that people have their settings correct, they would be notified, hopefully. But we all know that there are instances, specifically recently in Texas with the flooding, where those cell phone signals and those cell phone communications did not make it out to the people who were in the flood zone. So it's really important to me that the public gets the option to choose and opt in to tornado sirens. So I would ask for your support to add this to the bond, give the public the option to choose to have tornado sirens. And lastly, I would just say that I would rather us be proactive in this and it not be like the situation that we're seeing in Texas right now, where everyone's doing a huge rewind and wondering and looking at every single opportunity that was missed for sirens to be put in place. So I feel very passionate that the public should get to choose how their money is spent. I think we've all heard and seen people asking for the sirens, and I just feel strongly that the public should get to choose whether or not they have that. So thank you.
Wendy Hughes?
So I have a few questions, and I'll line them out first, and then we can figure out who needs to answer them. The first question, if we pass this resolution, is the intent on having an amendment at next week's meeting?
I believe so. Just to explain, if I can just kind of explain why we're doing this way, Ms. Newport was requesting an amendment to add this, and then, of course, that would be considered and voted on. And because this bond ordinance is drafted by bond counsel and has to be very carefully worded, and they would need to draft any amendments, we thought, well, hang on a second, why don't we just do a resolution and decide whether we want to go down this road? And then if you adopt this resolution, then we will go to bond counsel and say, okay, go ahead and add this, and we'll talk to the finance people about adding that dollar figure to it with the rest of the bond ordinance. If you don't adopt this, then we were not going to request that be added, just as a convenience to our bond counsel, really, and just because of the timing.
Yeah, and then I think 2 additional questions. If this does pass and it moves to being an amendment, would you be agreeable to the wording maybe being emergency weather systems in place instead of siren, just to be a little more ambiguous in case we can figure out different layering of possibilities for the best options? And third and final question, would there be a possibility, or do we know if the proposed radio towers and the siren towers could be consolidated on some of them to be one tower to help reduce land needed for that? So I don't know.
What was that last part? Could you repeat that?
If we were able to, if we had the radio towers added in, would some of the sirens also be able to be placed on the radio towers to basically 2 birds, 1 stone on that, instead of having to have redundancy in land needs?
So I'm open to whatever wording that the attorneys or the bond folks need there to answer the wording question. And Mr. Kelly, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Well, I would just say that the bond ordinance is about going to the voters to basically borrow the money. That's what we're going to the voters to ask. And so in order to do that, we list those projects that the voters get to decide whether they want particular portions of that. We've talked about all that. Not to speak for Ms. Newport, but I think she wants a separate question on that particular issue. Now, as a technical matter, whether those sirens could be put on that tower or whether they would just be installed at the fire station, I mean, I don't know anything about sirens, and I'm going to leave it to the experts on that. So the question is whether we're going to ask the citizens whether to borrow the money to buy it. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm not trying to talk around it. I want to get to it, but
I just didn't know how specific the wording needed to be, if sirens or like systems, emergency systems in place for weather, if it mattered or not.
well, wording is important. And if the more general you are in statement, the broader the scope of the potential project. If you want to be very particular about a siren, or, I don't know, I'm sure they probably have a technical name in the business, whether they're called public address, I don't know what that is. I think we're going to figure that out very quickly if we do this, so that it will contain that wording as to what those systems are technically called.
Okay.
I don't know as we sit here, and we'll be talking to people to figure it out.
Any comments down here? Larry Wilms?
A question for Shay, and I have to apologize, I wasn't prepared for our work session last week to ask the questions. The 635,000, that's based on an estimate for what, one siren, 10 sirens, 100 sirens, a certain grid system of sirens? Do you know what that's based on at all?
Yeah, yes, I do know what it's based on. I had engaged the company that the City of Rogers is using currently.
Okay.
Chief Sims and I have been communicating with them. Obviously, the project itself would go out to RFP, so it's not as if we've selected a provider or anything like that, but we used their cost estimates. They also created a potential coverage map, making an assumption of specific decibels and locations. And so let me look up the exact number of towers that they recommended, and if you'll just give me a minute, I'll chime back in with that.
So,
It's 17.
and so in their estimate, they included everything that's needed, the land acquisition or placement for that, and power supplies and those kinds of things, I'm assuming, is that right?
Yeah, so it's not an exact estimate. It's not a response to an RFP.
Right.
It's only some rough napkin math, but it is pretty directionally correct, and it's assuming $37,000 per tower. It doesn't assume land acquisition. We would anticipate that, like a lot of other things that go well in our city, that we would have the cooperation of easement owners in our city. And verbally, those folks have indicated that they would be amenable to that agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Travis?
Yeah, I just kind of have a rhetorical question, unless any of the council would like to answer it. But a couple months ago, maybe a few months ago, I can't remember exactly when, council was meeting for a work session, and we were doing it online because of the severe weather possibilities. And I never got an alert to take shelter. However, it was very adamant. The weathermen were very adamant that Bella Vista should take shelter now. And I never got that alert, except for I was listening to my work radio. So I don't think anyone in here got an alert that night that I'm aware of.
Well, I don't know what you mean by anyone in here. I did. Absolutely, I did. In fact, I've been signed up. Well, I have several things to say. I've been signed up with KNWA for 15 years, and it's been spotless, absolutely spotless on every type of alert. They tell you if it's a thunderstorm, if it's a tornado warning, if you should seek shelter, it's timely, and actually always comes before BC alert.
Well, we didn't stop the meeting and we didn't take shelter, so I assume nobody got it.
Yeah. So, well, I wanted to say a few things about this proposal. One is our fire chief is against it, and he's the #1 safety official in the city. The second one is our police chief is against it, and he's another key safety official in the city. And my idea of how you manage a city is that you hire people with expertise. I was fortunate in that those people were already here when I became mayor. And then they tell you things on areas that they know way more about than you do. And then you proceed in 9 times out of 10, you proceed in that fashion. So I think it's imprudent to have sirens, frankly. I did have some research I did, which I'll pass out to you. And one of the things is every tornado in or about Bella Vista from 1950 to 2010 It's every tornado that's EF2 or more. The ratings are EF0 to EF5. So 2 or more are significant tornadoes. And it tells you how far that tornado was from Bella Vista. The closest one was 9.2 miles in 60 years. Closest one was and they list them all. There's 102 of them, and most of them are 30, 40, 50 miles away. None of them had any fatalities in Bella Vista, obviously. Most of them didn't have fatalities even where they occurred. A few of them had fatalities. So in 60 years, no one has been killed in Bella Vista from a tornado. And then I thought, well, what about 2010 to 2025? Because the study I found happened to have those, just up to 2010. Well, I've lived here that whole time, so I was pretty confident no one had passed away from a storm. And in the last 15 years, there was an EF2 tornado in Cincinnati, which is in western Washington County. Some of you may recall hearing about it. There were a few fatalities. Now, I can't say that there's never going to be a tornado in Bella Vista, but clearly our topography is set up in a way that we're not nearly as likely to have them as a lot of other places. And so from 1950 to 2025, 75 years, there hasn't been a fatality from a tornado. And there hasn't even been a EF2 tornado actually in Bella Vista in that entire time. So it strikes me odd that you'd spend over there's a million safety things to worry about. People, and we do worry about all of them. People being killed in a car accident or, something happening in a fire. I can tell you exactly what has happened. Since I've been mayor, there was one person killed in a fire. I remember it very well. And there's been a few, very few automobile fatalities. And we always look at them, look at the reasons, try and figure out how to make our city as safe as possible. And I just don't think this is the way to make our city as safe as possible. I don't mind you bringing it up. I don't mind people suggesting things. But I have to fall back on the fire chief and the police chief, and I think they know best. I'm not saying it could never happen, but, when you manage things, you have to play probability theory. I mean, there's other things we could get that would enhance our safety more than this. And a list of the ways you can be notified of tornadoes is BC Alert, which the fire chief has us signed up with. My understanding is if you have a landline, you're signed up automatically. If you have a cell phone, you can go sign up. There's a wireless emergency alerts that even if your cell phone's turned off, makes a loud noise and alerts you. There's several phone apps having to do with alerting of storms. There's the news services, like I referred to one I have. There's a weather radio. So there's all kinds of different ways for people to protect themselves. Incidentally, the KNWA one is something like $10 a year. There's 16,000 houses. If every single person signed up for it, it'd be 160,000 for a year. So, plus it wouldn't cost the city anything. So anyway, I just don't think it's an idea we should follow through on. So, Craig?
The only question I had, obviously, safety is paramount, no matter what. The question I have, and I don't know who to ask, would be why cities have gone away from these type systems. I don't know. To my understanding, either maintenance cost, the cost to maintain those systems has risen exponentially over the years, and I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I have no problem with what you're proposing, but I don't know if we're going to get into a situation where we're devoting time and money into a system that is basically outdated and surpassed by newer technology, as the mayor's saying. I don't mind exploring anything, but it just has to make financial sense too, so.
Sure, Shay, go ahead.
Thanks, Craig. I would just say that, like, for example, the city of Rogers is definitely not moving away from it, and they're in the process of adding 9 additional towers to have, in fact, more siren
Well, they've
coverage.
encountered, what, 2 or 3 tornadoes in the last 2 or 3 years?
Right, and I
5
think,
years.
like, the science would state that the severe weather is actually, you know, moving further east in our country. I'm from Oklahoma, and so I'm very used to tornadoes, and we're seeing less activity in Oklahoma and more activity further east. So I do respect the mayor's research and his position, but I hope he's correct that we never see a tornado here. But I also hope that we as a city government are never put in a position where we are held to account for at least, again, not just give, that we should give the voters the choice on how they would like to spend their money.
I think the important information is going to be maintenance and what it's going to cost to maintain a system of 17 sirens or whatever it's going to be, and make sure that makes sense. So.
Yeah, and lastly, I would just say that when we're talking dollars and we're trying to quantify things, I would just hazard a guess that there's more than $600,000 worth of life insurance coverage in this room
Oh,
alone.
I absolutely agree.
So,
And I'm not trying to make it a financial point. I'm just saying that we really need to explore it before we get it going, so.
I'm trying to go in order. I saw people. Larry Wilms, he said something.
I guess one observation that I have is that if you're in Rogers, you'll find that the siren goes off every day at 12 noon. And why do they do that? They test the system every day. And that's required in order to make sure it's functional. So any town you're in, it may be 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it may be 12 noon, might be midnight, depending on what they've set as their schedule for checking the sirens. And so if the sirens aren't working, the people in the safety, usually the fire department, is the one that kind of monitors whether all of them are working, or citizens will call in and complain, my siren didn't work today, but I heard the sirens go off. And so the maintenance is really the big ticket, and that will only increase as the units get older. To Mayor Flynn's comments, I think before we moved to Bella Vista in '05, we had one wind shear storm that went through on the West Chelsea, south of Lancashire. It took some trees down. That's the only bad windstorm that I'm aware of in Bella Vista historically.
Travis, I'll get you. And
Mayor, I appreciate you doing the research and giving us this document. That's pretty helpful. You mentioned that Chief Sims is against this, and I know he's on vacation, but I know Chief Wolfgang, think Chief Hamilton or Chief Sims. I would like to hear from them why they're against it, if we have time, since we might vote on this tonight.
That's probably a good idea. Before we do that, Anna, did you?
Okay, so I live on Lake Avalon, and we had straight line winds a few years ago that took down 80 trees just on the lake alone, and it was a very, very scary night. We keep calling it a tornado siren. I think that it's all weather. So if you look around the country, we've seen tornadoes, we've seen hurricanes. We're not gonna have a hurricane, but the impacts of a hurricane can cause a rain event and flooding. And we've seen a lot of flooding as well. So, more of a weather or emergency notification, more so than just a tornado, I guess is the way that I was thinking about it.
Okay. Wolfgang, could you come up for a minute and just?
I wanted to make clear that Chief Sims is not against this because of the safety of the people. He's against it because it's not an effective, it causes a false sense of security with the public because you're not going to reach everybody. So if everybody thinks, oh, when I hear the tornado sirens, you know what happened when these were in effect? We would set the siren off and our phones would ring off the hook saying, what's going on? Why'd you set the sirens off? So Bella Vista is what, 45 square miles? Tornado sirens are effective 1 to 2 square miles. So I do the math on that. With our terrain, tornado sirens were designed to get people outside, notify them. These houses now are more sound tight, so if you're sleeping in your bed and you sound those tornado signs, they're not gonna hear them. So I think the mayor's correct. I think BC Alert, KNWA, whatever you can do, if you got your cell phone by your bed, I think that's the most effective way. I don't think it's the answer here in Bella Vista. I just don't. Now, Chief Sims can elaborate more on this, but back, let's see, when I started here in '85, we had tornado sirens on the Cooper Tower in 279, we had it on London, Lambeth Tower on Kingsland, and Trafalgar Tower, and Branchwood Tower. Those were the tornado sirens. They weren't effective. False sense of security with the public. So they took them out of service, and they remained on the towers for, gosh, I think Robert, do you remember late 90s? We stopped using them completely, and they took them down in 2007 or 8 because people would see them wanting to know why they're not in use. So they just went ahead and take them down.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
I just don't think it's the answer. I think you're looking at 40 to 50 plus sirens in Bella Vista to be effective. That's my opinion, just from some of the research that I did. I think 17 wouldn't even start to cover everybody, if that's your intention, to cover everybody in Bella Vista. Now, if you're only going to cover half of Bella Vista, then maybe so. But I don't think that's doing the public justice if you're only going to do a little bit and not all.
Oh, Wendy? Sorry.
It's kind of answered my question, but would having sirens placed at targeted areas, like near Blowing Springs Park, where there are campers who would be outside in an event, and would be able to hear them more clearly through their RVs or their tents, would having some placed like in those strategic locations be smart or not, or?
Well, I think if you throw the tornado siren out to the public, everybody's going to say, yes, I'm all for it. But if they're misinformed about who's these tornado sirens are going to reach and alert, and that's not going to be everybody, then I don't think it's a good deal. But that's just my opinion, and I didn't have a whole lot of time to look, but I just know the experiences that we had when and the fire department was in charge of setting those off. And just like I said a while ago, we'd get phone call after phone call. You would think when people would hear the sirens, they would say, let's find shelter. No, they'd call and say, what's going on? Instead of trying to, so.
Craig?
And to play devil's advocate, the other side of that would be people that wouldn't hear the siren, but then they'd be complaining. We spent all this money on a system and we can't hear it, and or, something along those lines. I mean, I'm not. Put your mic on. Ma'am? Oh, okay. Apologize. I'm not opposed to what's being proposed, but I think it's gonna take a lot of, if this is a route that we want to go down, it's going to take a lot of research and make sure that we're not just kind of throwing money around for the sake of. Because to your point, we either need to be all in or all out. That's really the only way to look at it.
100%. And we're here for the public, the safety of the public. If you're all in to cover all of Bella Vista, I think it would take a extensive study to see the highs and the lows, the ravines, the valleys, and what. But it's going to take more than 17 sirens, and I'm not a professional, but I know that, say you take Prescott and Chelsea, they're down in a big valley. sound travels above that, so you're gonna have to make special provisions for those low-lying areas. And some of those, and like I said before, tornado sirens originally developed to alert people outside, not people inside. The houses now are more soundproof. You got foam houses, open cell, closed cell houses that you can't hear a car go by outside, so how are you gonna hear a tornado siren at 11 or 12 at night? You're not. You should be dependent on your cell phone, social media, that kind of stuff. So that's just my opinion. And I think Chief Sims would back me up on it, so.
Thank you.
Well, the other day I was discussing this with Chief Graves, and he made a point to me. He said, suppose you're the person in charge of pressing the button for the siren. What you don't want to do is not press it, and there's a bad storm. Therefore, what's going to happen is you're going to press it too often. And then the next thing that's going to happen is people are going to say, oh, there goes that siren again, and ignore it. We're talking human nature here. Oh, there goes that siren where they're always pressing it and nothing happens. But you're going to pass on pressing it and then something bad happens. What's going to happen in the press? Oh my gosh, the fire chief had a siren system and he didn't activate it. So of course you're going to activate it too often, no matter who you put in charge of doing it. It's just human nature. You can't afford to whiff on that side. Go ahead, Shay.
I'd just like to add a point of clarification. The city of Rogers uses they turn on their sirens. Outside of the testing they do once a week on Wednesdays at noon. The other way that the sirens are turned on is through a direct integration with the National Weather Service, and so they are the ones who activate the alarms. That's one of the things I was intentional about asking about, so that our city staff wasn't burdened or tasked with that piece. So we could do something like that.
Larry?
I guess the tornado that went through Decatur and Rogers and east of there last year in I think it was May, I was up and my National Weather Alarm radio, the thing that you passed out at one time to residents, went off, and I heard it, and it said the tornado was sighted or dropped down, and so it caught my attention that that's west of us, and so I kept listening to it, and they kept monitoring it and saying that it was progressing farther east, and so how far east was it going to go, and where was it going to go? And so then I turned on the TV and watched channel, what is it, 12 or whatever, KNWA weather, and they were tracking it along with 2 other stations in our area with the weather staff in their office. So that was live transmission, so you could watch the progress. But the alert really came from the National Weather Service radio alert that it touched down.
I use BC Alert, and it goes off every time.
Yes,
Sometimes it drives you crazy because it goes off so much because they're just continuing to tell you that something's going on. But it's personally never failed me on a thunderstorm. And, but
Mayor,
Travis?
Chief, heard you said back in 1985 when you started, so thank you for your 40 years of service to the city of Bella Vista.
thank you, sir.
One of the things that caught my attention about this is that the tornado sirens are meant for people outside, and I think that's the idea. We want to capture the people that are outside doing hiking, mountain biking, kayaking, if they're doing that in the weather, whatever. The other problem with, like, I have BC alerts too, and I have all of the stuff to get notified. But what about the people traveling to our area, staying from out of town that aren't plugged into our KNWA or our stuff? The other thing that I wanted to caution the council on is the maintenance, like Councilmember Honchel mentioned, because if one of the sirens malfunction, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, you'd have to hire somebody who's licensed to work on that.
Correct.
And there's not a bunch of those people out there, so they can kind of charge what they want. So I worry about that too. But what about the people traveling that aren't plugged into our local alerting system?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know the answer to that. There's somebody that's traveling other than they just listen to the radio. I mean, I don't know, but I would just urge you, if you're gonna go through with this is I would do a little more, having more of an extensive study on what it's going to take to do this, because it's like Greg suggested, I would go all in or all out, one of the two. I wouldn't say let's just target these, because I don't think that's fair to the public. I think a false sense of security is huge. I don't want people thinking that, hey, we got tornado sirens, I'm going to be fine, I just got to listen for them. I don't think that's the way to go. So, and I don't know the answer to this other than utilize BC Alert, KNWA, and those apps that are very effective, in my opinion.
Shay?
I just want to thank everyone for their discussion. Thank you for weighing in. I am happy to sit here all night and debate the specifics of sirens, their effectiveness, their location, things like that. Just want to remind the council, though, that this is simply, are we going to add this to the list of projects that the public gets to vote on? And so the crux of the question is, should the public get to decide how their own money is spent? And my position is yes. So again, we can debate sirens or what we call them, things like that. But again, the heart of this question is, are we going to put it on the ballot for voters to decide how their money is spent?
Well, thank you for that point. You know, Kim Hall made the point in the work session that we could take time and study the tornado thing separately from the bond, and she thought that would be more prudent. You know, one thing about being on city council, each of you represent about 11,000 residents. And you're saying, and you have all this information, and you're saying, gee, I can't decide. Well, if you ask people to vote, they don't know what the fire chief thinks. They don't know what the police chief thinks. They don't know any of the statistics I just gave you. They know, most of them know very little about it. So you're saying, gee, this is the best way to do things. Have the people vote. Well, it depends on the situation. I think in this situation, you need to man up and do your job and decide whether there's tornado sirens yourself. Not put it in the hands of somebody who doesn't have the information. You've got the information and they don't. So you're actually being unfair to the 11,000 people you represent. Travis?
Is it possible to table this for our next meeting so that we could get the numbers to do the maintenance, and then we could vote on this resolution on August 4th?
Well, we kind of need to know whether to put this on the projected ordinance for the special meeting next Monday. So there's not going to be another intervening meeting to get that information, because we would, I mean, you would be deciding whether to add, I mean, we'd be back at the beginning why we didn't do it the way we initially were thinking about an amendment. Technically, I guess, legally, I guess you could, but I don't know practically how we would do it, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Craig?
And I'm not one to drag things out like this. Because this, to me, this is a work. I think tabling and then take it back to work, just whatever. I think there's a lot to discuss before we even get to the point of talking about getting it on. You know, because as far as like people that are traveling and things like that, we could make that a requirement for every Airbnb to have the city app, and then possibly Cassie have some kind of weather system, something on our city page, you know, something along those lines, as far as reaching those kind of people that are traveling or anything like that. But I do think that there's a lot to discuss before we just throw this on there. I do agree with doing it separate.
Mayor, if I could just piggyback on my prior comment, the most important thing is that the amount of the bond for this project. So if you build an expectation that, okay, we're going to do it, I think the voters are going to expect that it's going to cost $700,000. So you've got to make sure of your number, because if you don't borrow enough, then you can end up with some budgetary issues.
Okay, well, I guess we've thoroughly discussed it. Do you want to go ahead and put it to a vote, Shane, to see? So this is a vote on whether expressing an intent to place an emergency siren system on the capital improvement bond ordinance. It's a vote whether we have this on the bond.
So there may or there would need to be a motion and a second, like
Yeah.
the rest of our
Motion to
resolutions.
approve.
Second.
That was Shay Newport and Anna Isbell. A roll call vote.
Council members Harp,
No.
Hughes,
No.
Newport,
Yes.
Wilms,
No.
Isbell,
Yes.
and Hanschel.
No.
Motion fails 2-4. Let's see, we're at the point of announcements. I did want to mention there's planned to be a special meeting on Monday, August 4, special meeting of City Council about the bond issue at 6 p.m. Next City Council work session is 5:30 p.m. Monday, August 18 at Bella Vista Police Training. Next City Council regular meeting, 6 p.m. Monday, August 25 at Bella Vista District Court. Planning Commission work session, 4:30 p.m., July 31 at Bella Vista District Court. Planning Commission regular meeting, 4:30 p.m. or immediately following Board of Zoning adjustment, Monday, August 11 at Bella Vista District Court. Board of Construction Appeals, 3 p.m. Tuesday, August 12, if necessary, at Fire Station Number 4 Conference Room, 1639 Forest Hills Boulevard. And Larry Wilms, I believe, had an announcement.
In the interest of those who are interested in supporting our nonprofit agencies around the city, the POA has offered to contribute 10% of all food sales on Wednesday, July 30th, for either lunch or dinner at the BV 65 restaurant. That's the old Papa Mike's location. So it would be a way for you to generously support our Bella Vista Historical Society, because 10% of what the sales are for that day at that location will go to the Historical Society. So I just remind you to do that. It's a good thing for our community. It makes us feel better. Thank you.
Okay. With that, meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.